I still have a lot of movesets to make for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but the problem is, the dex is awful, so I don't have a lot of motivation to do so, and it's awful on a lot of different layers. We have straight up not competitive Pokemon, but then we have things like Dondozo and Garganasalt, making it to where even the good to decent Pokemon aren't really worth using. Power creep has made competitive Pokemon very ugly, but I want to talk about multiple Pokemon in this video to kind of get a batch of not really usable Pokemon out of the way. So if you enjoy the video, or if it helps out in any way, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. So let's start with Spidops. There is absolutely no viability to anything this Pokemon can ever do in any serious Pokemon battle. Like, this is all it's got. Protects from damaging attacks and then lowers speed on contact. And it's the only Pokemon that gets Silk Trap. So, weird signature move, weird not really that used ability, or not accessible ability with Stakeout. But the problem with Stakeout is that it doesn't work on KO. It's only a switch on that turn. And the Pokemon that get access to Stakeout are not scary enough to force Pokemon away. It's not like your Spidops comes in and the opponent goes, "Oh no, I have absolutely no way of dealing with this thing, so I need to get out of here." And you also don't really see, like, typings that would maybe force interesting choice interactions. Like, oh, a ground-type Pokemon with Stakeout to come in on a Choice Specs Thunderbolt, or something like that, and then they're forced to switch out. Doesn't really happen. Doubling the damage of a 79 attack Pokemon actually doesn't matter. And anything that would be like chain KOing for Stakeouts, well, if you KO a Pokemon and then a new Pokemon comes in, that's the previous turn, so it doesn't count as a switch for this turn, which is also why we never see Stakeout work on any Pokemon, even something from last generation like Thievul. And then it's just like a buggish Pokemon moveset. So we see things like, okay, it's got Taunt, but at 35 speed, it's going to get taunted first, and then it doesn't... there's nothing usable here. There is nothing you can do with Spidops unless it's like doubles Silk Trap. Its first impression is worse than low kicks. I don't even know why I'm spending any more time on this completely unusable Pokemon. So then we have Mabosstiff, and it has a new ability with Guard Dog. And here's like a weird thing with Pokemon designed for modern Pokemon. There's two weird things. One is a very niche interaction to something problematic. That instead of nerfing Intimidate, they say, okay, here's how you counter it. You use Mabosstiff. So you're immune to Intimidate, and then if you get intimidated, it turns into a +1 attack. So, Defiant with extra steps, and it cannot be forced to switch out. But phasing hasn't really become that much of a thing in Generation 9, and this reminds me of the Adrenaline Orb being introduced in Generation 7, and then getting 0 competitive use. Raises the holder's speed by 1 stage if it gets affected by Intimidate. So, it seems like they don't want to put too much power in because they acknowledge, well, Intimidate is everywhere, so it's not really that much of a risk to bring an Adrenaline Orb or something that has a specific interaction because it's most likely going to happen. Because it's most likely going to happen, we can't put in a necessary amount of power. It's not like, oh, +1 speed, +1 special attack if intimidated, because then you're getting too much power on something that might be too common. But instead of nerfing the too common thing, it's like, well, this doesn't do anything for anyone. So, you know, these kind of responses aren't really that usable. Same thing for abilities like Stakeout, that we've seen like all of these new signature abilities are very like niche interactions being introduced more and more since Generation 7, but then something that's like super powerful ends up on a weak Pokemon. Not necessarily Stakeout, but all these gimmicks that you see on like that just sound like the craziest thing ever, and then the Pokemon have no stats or a bad moveset or nothing to back off the crazy signature move or crazy signature ability. And Mabosstiff just kind of like falls into that where, alright, we have a middling Pokemon that would probably be interesting in Generation 6. Where you throw these stats in Generation 6 and you actually like have it just run it down on Assault Vest or get some good coverage or do some things, and then would actually probably be pretty good. But so much power creep has come in, and responding to Intimidate, that just hasn't worked. And even quote-unquote nerfs to Intimidate in previous generations didn't work. Oblivious, Own Tempo, Inner Focus, Scrappy, just immune to Intimidate, and Intimidate also triggers Rattled. So surely that's going to do something about Incineroar. No, turns out Intimidate on a fake-out Pokemon that can't be burned, just way too strong. It's also kind of weird that we have Guard Dog being introduced, but then Incineroar not being immediately available. We can also kind of like see which Pokemon get Intimidate, Gyarados, Salamence. So like on the double side, yeah, Arcanine, kind of your budget Incineroar if you need it, but then not a lot of Intimidate Pokemon, so it's really just 2 abusers when it becomes available with the Landorus and the Incineroar. And again, maybe like some other niche interactions, but then you have the Guard Dog, and you just have a lesser Pokemon. And then it doesn't have a Ground-type move or Fighting-type move that it can use to kind of deal with an Incineroar or something. Ice Fang for Landorus, I guess. And then, like, some other weird stuff. And the +1 is nice on a 120 attack. That starts finding some interesting damage conversions on, like, stab and stuff. You can have, like, some Terra options, but overall, it's just a bundle of better stats than we're going to see for the rest of the video, but not just going to get too much usage. You'll get Guard Dog, Stakeout. It can Intimidate itself as well. Comeuppance is an interesting move. Hit by attack returns 1.5x damage. So we have Metal Burst on an 80 hit point Pokemon. So it's like, do you just do something like this, try to catch him on a Comeuppance, and then maybe your 85 speed outspeeds a tank Pokemon and gets some chip in before you get KO'd? This is just mostly like extra move slotty stuff. Ice Fang, Outrage. Trailblaze for the speed kind of gets interesting. I don't know. Since you're immune to Intimidate, I don't think you can actually Adrenaline Orb on top of this and then end up at 1.5, 1.5. I guess it needs to be tested, maybe someone knows, but that's just my thought, because if you're just immune to it, it doesn't get the opportunity to interact, and that's what we've seen in the past with Pokemon before. Again, my idea is like, okay, you just run Assault Vest, you bulk it out, you find some things, and maybe if like you're a 3-hit KO Pokemon, you can clean up a bit. That would also be good on the Intimidate if you're running it singles. Stakeout. Like, again, I don't see a point where it's like, oh man, Mabosstiff is too crazy, so now I gotta switch and then take more damage. And this is what I mean about the Pokemon being interesting in previous generations. I think it could have held its own in Generation 7 to a degree, where you have a 120 attacking Pokemon that's getting good durability out of the Assault Vest and Intimidate, and then just kind of running decent damage. It's a 3-hit KO Pokemon, and it can 2-hit KO things in return, or maybe just find like a cheese one-shot against a choice item, like Choice Specs, Choice Band, +1 boosted Pokemon, so it can ante in that way. But right now in the current state of Generation 9, it's just too slow, too bulky, that you're not doing enough damage to tank Pokemon, or there's just going to be something way too overwhelming, like a Fairy type Specs move or a +1 that just KOs you anyways, and yay, that's kind of it. So a Pokemon that has like stuff, but immediately got power crept, which again is a lot of Generation 9. Squawkabilly. We have physical Chatot. And Chatot actually has like some niche viability because of some weird stuff it can pull with like Throat Spray now, or also just having Boom Burst. Like you sash it, you Boom Burst, anything outspeed gets 2-shot. Boom, you got something going on there. But even when Chatot was usable, it was already getting power crept and was already a niche pick that could maybe +1 with like a Choice Scarf or something, but it wasn't a reliable, sweeping, good kind of Pokemon. So with Squawkabilly, we're effectively in the same thing. Like, okay, 92 speed. Again, slow meta creates a lot of weird interactions. The best I've got is like Choice Scarf, Hustle, Brave Bird, and you try to one-shot something with your 96 attack, and then you just take a ton of damage, and maybe you just try to do it again if you're not getting resisted. Foul Play, Choice Scarfing on a Pokemon that isn't faster than you, so like a +1 Dragon Dance Pokemon that's slower, going to be pretty nice. Anything that's just like Swords Dancing on less speed, you just come in and try to get more damage out of that. Parting Shot, good option. Reversal, you one-shot something on the Brave Bird, get obliterated, and then like maybe come back in for a reversal at some point, try to find some extra damage there. But even then, like, unless you're at 1 hit points, which would need to be triggered by a Focus Sash or just insane luck, better off doing Brave Bird damage, I guess. This is why I have to make this kind of video. Like, how much more depth is there? None. So then we have Bombirdier. So here's another Pokemon that's just kind of awkward. Like, why make this? You know, in modern Pokemon, why just make Pokemon that aren't competitively viable at all, but also have signature stuff going on? Like Rocky Payload effectively makes it triple stab, but we saw more viability on Delmaz. And we've also seen like things like Steely Spirit just kind of stack into crazy damage on Berserker, and Berserker doesn't work competitively either. So something like this just kind of doesn't work out. I understand that you can't have only like crazy high powerful Pokemon to beat the story with early on in the game. That's also why we have evolutions. That's why we have, you know, Pokemon that evolve twice. That way you make the middle stage the one that has like Squawkability power or Spidops power, and then you can make something that's actually competitively viable at the end level 30 something, and then it feels pretty good. Or you need to unlock it through pure competitive means with like the hidden ability, maxed out EVs in a specific stat, and then that Pokemon becomes really good. Also, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being an open world means you could probably just sprinkle around power and it'll be okay. But with this, again, another just bird Pokemon that has Generation 1 stats and doesn't really get to do anything with it. So what do we got? We got Taunt, Acrobatics, Knockoff, Rock Blast. Slower meta means maybe you just outspeed something here. Focus Sash procs, do Acrobatics, and then you're 103 attack Pokemon using Acrobatics. That's not impressive. I don't know about other consumable item triggers or anything like that. Is this the Pokemon that gets the Adrenaline Orb and then Acrobatics, but then like anything else could do that? Also, you want that more on a special attacker, so kind of not really going to do anything here. Knockoff, it's just a thing. Rock Blast, Rocky Payload. But just run Dragon Dance Tyranitar instead. And Tyranitar has gotten power crept out. Tyranitar is nowhere to be found in competitive Pokemon right now, which kind of shows like something is up. After that, like, what's the most you can get out of it? 82 speed, you boost that +1, gonna be decent. Salac Berry, Endure Acrobatics, that's how you combo it. There's your consumable item, because like, oh, Focus Sash doesn't pop, then you're out of stab move, and you're not feeling that great. So with this, what do we get here? How does, like, Endure Acrobatics look? You can also throw the Knockoff. Do we need the Jolly Nature? The answer is yes, because a Pokemon like Dragapult ran a quick damage calculator, and like, okay, so we go for the gimmick. You know, you endure it out, you go to 1 hit points, endure Salac Berry, combo we talked about. It's kind of like one of those cheesy things where, oh, any Pokemon is viable with Baton Pass, and not any, but some Pokemon can be salvaged by just going endure Salac Berry. Weird thing is, we don't see this strategy a lot. So it's not that great, but there are situations where, like, if you pop this at the right time on the right Pokemon, you can reverse a sweep, and it's really cool. But people just would rather play Gargantuar and Dondozo. And then when the legendary Pokemon become available on the battle spot, it's all going to be those anyways, so this doesn't really find too much. And so you set up the Acrobatics, you get all that good stab in there, and turns out Knockoff's just the way that you beat Dragapult anyways. So a Pokemon with 88, 75, taking a super effective Jolly Nature attack hit that gets like bonus damage to like Knockoff or Acrobatics in some kind of way. That's your path to victory. And that's kind of like where the 100 is locked. Like, if you're not hitting a super effective move that has a bit more power, then it's not going to do anything to the opponent and you're kind of in trouble. But at least you can actually hit a decent speed tier and kind of follow up on it. And that's the most you get. And that is an interesting angle that gives us slightly more than another generic, normal flying, throwaway bird Pokemon, is that, like, Stab Knockoff kind of becomes a thing. And if you hit that onto a Ghost-type Pokemon with an item, they just kind of get KO'd. Keen-Eye is just kind of here for the memes, where it's like, well, maybe evasion happens, but no one's running that either, so you do this, and then, like, the reason why it's a Rock Blast is this has a chance of hitting higher, and also just more damage on average than a Rock Slide. So I guess with this moveset, you can go for the Rock Blast. I mean, if you're playing a cheesy kind of Pokemon anyways, like the one time I'm okay with the Stone Edge, anything below 90% accuracy is not reliable enough for me. And like Rocky Payload, Stab, Stone Edge, okay, now you hit an Ice-type Pokemon under the same like circumstances as Dragapult, they get KO'd. Cool. There's actually a weird world where if Chien Pao is choice locked, you can do the Salac Berry thing, outspeed it, and then one-shot it on a Stone Edge. A 3-hit Rock Blast isn't enough. You need the 4-hit Rock Blast. So I guess if you're playing with those odds, Stone Edge is just going to be better because you need them KO'd. And yeah, Bombirdier antis that. That means it also works on the Chi-Yu if it's choiced, and then you can still cheese and just outspeed it. And Chi-Yu doesn't have the priority shenanigans. So congratulations, we found a Pokemon that just kind of responds in a really weird way. And then we have the last Pokemon for this video, Oinkologne. So I was trying to make like a full video moveset for this Pokemon, and it's what inspired just kind of this whole idea of just kind of like slap together one maybe decent moveset for each of the Pokemon that really only have maybe one decent moveset, but they're still not competitive anyways. And I was going deep. I was like looking into speed tiers and trying to figure out the best way of making these Pokemon work. But at the end of the day, it's just Greedent. Like, Greedent never took off, even though it has stuffed cheeks. You eat a berry and get +2 defense for free, plus the benefit of that berry. So you come in, it's like, all right, let's go Apricot Berry, and now we're +2 defense, +1 special defense on one turn. The Pokemon has 120 hit points and like decent bulk. Like, you can just run it down and get super tanky. And then there's body press options as well. It can stockpile, and then just never happen because the Pokemon doesn't work. Also, like Cheek Pouch, you do that while also healing a third. So you get to ignore a lot of the damage you just took. Let's say you take 50%. And then you just kind of heal all that up, and now you're taking half damage from physical and a third damage from special. That's just winning. And then Greedent never won. So Oinkologne has less durable stats, still the stuff cheeks, some weird ability stuff, but lingering aroma. If it's an aroma, why does the Pokemon have to make contact to spread that? Now, I could see this, just like, what if any hit spreads lingering aroma? That would actually be like super crazy and busted sounding, but it sounds like what you want to do with a not that powerful Pokemon. Like, you put this in to say, hey, no abilities for the game, but I'm effectively playing with like half a Pokemon. So it's a 2.5v3, and no one gets abilities. No one gets to have any kind of shenanigans. That would be a lot more interesting. But because it's contact only, we've seen this with Mummy. Mummy can be annoying, but it's not like one of those things that just like infinitely perpetuates throughout a battle or anything, and then nothing really happens. So I'm like, alright, what about Salakberry, Stuffed Cheeks? Stuffed Cheeks give you the +2, that's a body press. Stab on the body slam. 100 attack is kind of a thing. You're bulky enough to not immediately get KO'd. And that's where I was starting to get into the speed stuff. Like, okay, what uninvested Pokemon do we naturally outspeed? Or like, what kind of weird things can we find? So maybe a 100 speed Pokemon's not investing because we're bulky meta and things are getting weird. All right, max speed, low kicks on that 92. That's it. That's your range. When we take 106 right here with these specific EVs, we +1 in on Salakberry, Stuffed Cheeks, and then we just don't take physical damage. And then we try to like two-shot things that are slower than 92. Fully speed invested. Moveset is kind of weird and all over the place, so I guess you run something like that. And yeah, Oinkologne male is going to be the more physical one. Female, kind of the same idea as Greedent. You stockpile, you body press, you chesto resto, and then you thief because you chesto restoed. Maybe you steal a good item. Maybe you become hard to KO, but if Greedent didn't do this better, then I don't know what Oinkologne is expecting, especially with like all the Terra power coming in, or just better bulky, tanky Pokemon that want to be setting up like stockpiles and iron defenses and whatever. You can potentially go Terra Fighting to get more damage on your body press, and that's it. At least like the way these movesets play out is the Thief allows you to hit ghost type Pokemon, which can be a problem for body press sets. And yeah, that's kind of it. So guys, enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.